JBN, we keep you informed. I am Michelle Jones, and in the news, 5 escaped serious injury in Manchester crash. At least 5 people narrowly escaped serious injury following a 2-vehicle collision on the Winston Jones Highway on the outskirts of Mandeville this morning. One of the vehicles landed in a precipice as a result of the collision. The other car, a Toyota Crown, had major damage. Elizabeth Fairclough was traveling in the car that went off-road. She said that the crash happened about 6:30 a.m. She and her husband were aboard a VW motor car when the crash occurred. I can't remember what happened, but I know the car was driving in with my husband, went over to a deep embankment, and it came out without a scratch, she said. This was all God, because for me to walk out of that accident, I should not be here standing and talking. I should have been down there, in the hospital or dead, she added. She didn't mask her emotion as she continued to give thanks that her life was spared. I want to tell the people of Jamaica that God is a miracle-working God, that He is still doing supernatural favor, that I came out without a scratch and standing on my feet, she said. Elderly man drowns in Clarendon during heavy rains. An elderly man drowned in Longwood Racecourse, Clarendon yesterday as heavy rains associated with Hurricane Ida pelted Jamaica. 78-year-old Dennis Jackson is believed to have been swept away. The Exeter police said Jackson was riding along the Longwood Main Road when he is believed to have fallen into difficulties. A resident stumbled on the body of the elderly man in a drain this morning. Copper wire thief shot dead by the police in Bogwalk Gorge. The Bogwalk Gorge in St. Catherine was earlier closed to facilitate the processing of a scene following a police fatal shooting this morning. A man was killed during an alleged confrontation with the police, and a second man is in custody while a third is reportedly on the run. The shooting was reportedly the culmination of a string of incidents which started with the men stealing copper wires in the community of Monticello in Spanish Town, St. Catherine. It's reported that about 4 a.m. the 3 men drove onto House Lane and began removing the copper wires. Residents alerted the police. This led to a running gun battle between the men and the police, which ended in the Bogwalk Gorge after the car with the alleged thieves crashed. One of the men was shot and killed, another was detained, and the third escaped. Navy veteran returns to U.S. after unjust deportation to Jamaica. The United States National Immigrant Justice Center, NIJC, and the Manhattan, New York-based Immigrant Defense Project, IDP, on Wednesday celebrated the return of U.S. Navy veteran Howard Bailey, who reunited with his family the day before in Virginia after a decade of living in exile in his native Jamaica, following what the groups say was his unjust deportation. Bailey was one of 11 deported individuals featured in NIJ's April 2021 white paper, A Chance to Come Home, a roadmap to bring home the unjustly deported, which urges the Joe Biden administration to adopt a centralized process to give unjustly deported individuals a meaningful chance to come home. 11 years ago, I went to bed with my family and woke up to be snatched away from my home and family, dragged out by ICE officers while my children watched, Bailey said. While I fought my case for 2 years in immigration detention, someone inside said to me, "Hey man, here, hope is dead. What are you hoping for?" He added. These past 11 years, I thought he was right. But today, I am home and I feel hope is alive again after so long. NIJC and IDP said in a joint statement that Bailey served for 4 years in the U.S. Navy, including during Operation Desert Storm. But nevertheless, ICE ripped him from his family for detention and deportation, based on a marijuana conviction later pardoned by the governor of Virginia, and despite his lawful permanent resident status, they said. Bailey said, "When I was deported, my family's entire lives went down the drain. I was the main provider, and they were left financially drained. They could barely survive. The emotional devastation gripped my mother, my siblings, my children. My deportation was a negative chain effect for every single person in my family. This is not something I wish on anyone. I would never want to live and see any other family go through what my family went through," he added. Bailey recently testified from Jamaica about his experience before a U.S. Senate Judiciary Subcommittee hearing led by U.S. Senator Adex Padilla. Following that hearing, Senator Padilla sent a letter to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security urging the agency to reopen Bailey's immigration proceedings and grant him humanitarian parole. Desperate families searching for lawyer's body. Relatives and friends of attorney-at-law Henry Charles Johnson, who reportedly died on August 17, are trying desperately to locate his body. So too is his common-law wife of 8 years, Robin Patrick. According to the family, the last time they saw Johnson was on August 6, when he was removed from his St. Andrew home by one of his daughters with the alleged assistance of armed policemen. From the day he was forcibly taken from her home, I have not seen him again or told where he was taken, stated Patrick. She said she was later informed that Johnson, who was the love of my life, had died, and steps were being taken to cremate the body. Charles made it clear to me many times that he wanted to be buried, not cremated, a tearful Patrick said last week. The common-law wife said that she has been trying everything to locate his remains, but to no avail. Johnson suffered a stroke last year, February, and could not talk or walk, but Patrick said he could still communicate by gestures. One of Johnson's close friends said that 2 days before Johnson was removed from his home, Patrick drove him to her house in Mandeville, Manchester, where they had a good time. According to the friend, Johnson looked very well, and it was difficult to process that he had died so soon after the visit. She said she even had photographs to mark the wonderful time they spent together. Johnson's sister, Rosemary Wigan Jones, said she was very disappointed with the manner in which her brother was removed from his home. She expressed concern that she and Johnson's two brothers were not being informed about the funeral arrangements. She said that as far as she knew, Johnson had a plot to be buried on. Everything is just hush-hush, and we as Johnson's siblings need to know when and where the funeral service is to take place, Wigan Jones said. She disclosed that her brother had decided before he became ill that he wanted Patrick to take care of him, so everyone should respect his wishes. She said she had a good relationship with Patrick. Patrick had filed an application in the Supreme Court on August 10, seeking an order to compel the police to return her common-law husband, who was taken away without a court order. Superintendent Aaron Fletch of the Constant Spring Police Station and the Attorney General are the defendants. Attorney-at-law Hugh Wildman, who is representing Patrick, said that although an affidavit of urgency was filed, he was told that the only available date was in September. The justice system of which Johnson was a part failed him, said Wildman. He stressed that the police acted unlawfully and must be blamed for what happened to Johnson. Wildman pointed out that by law, Patrick is Johnson's spouse. The role of the policeman in Johnson's removal from his home is being investigated by the Independent Commission of Investigations, INDECOM. Following Johnson's death, Patrick filed a suit against the defendants on August 20, seeking damages for assault and trespass, as well as relief under the Constitution for breach of right of property and breach of right of privacy. Johnson, a former policeman, came to national attention in 1980 when he, along with two soldiers and a civilian, were accused of plotting to overthrow the government of former Prime Minister Michael Manley. They were freed in the Home Circuit Court in October 1981 after a key witness was found to be unreliable. Johnson subsequently studied law and was practicing for about 30 years. PMP calls for urgent action on hospital oxygen supplies. The opposition is urging the government to immediately reach out to our neighbors, United States and Canada, for emergency supplies of oxygen to be airlifted to Jamaica to alleviate the critical shortage affecting the hospital system. In a statement this afternoon, opposition spokesman on health and wellness, Dr. Maurice Guy, said most hospitals had either run dangerously low or were out of oxygen. He said the hospitals are in a crisis as COVID-19 and other emergency patients require oxygen. Dr. Guy said his information was that the local supplier, IGL, has run out of supplies and shipments from Trinidad and Mexico were not expected until Monday. He said with Hurricane Ida affecting the Gulf region, no chances should be taken as there could be shipping disruptions. As a result, Dr. Guy said, the opposition wants the government to use the diplomatic channel to make contact with a view to securing emergency supplies for the island. He noted that a large percentage of the COVID-19 patients in hospitals require oxygen, as well as most of other emergencies which are being dealt with in the present emergency mode in which hospitals were put yesterday by the Ministry of Health and Wellness. The opposition spokesman said without emergency supplies, more patients could die. Dr. Guy said there were already life-threatening cases where no oxygen was available. Therefore, all avenues must be explored without delay in the interest of life. 835 new COVID cases recorded in Jamaica, 18 deaths. Jamaica recorded 835 new cases of the COVID-19 and 18 virus-related deaths on Friday, pushing the total number of confirmed cases on the island since the outbreak to 65,734 and the confirmed deaths to 1,483. The new cases comprise 493 females and 342 males with ages ranging from 1 day to 97 years. According to the Ministry of Health and Wellness, 178 of the cases were recorded in Kingston and St. Andrew, St. Catherine 170, St. James 92, Manchester 90, Clarendon 64, St. Anne 52, St. Elizabeth 48, Westmoreland 42, Trelawney 36, Hanover 31, Portland 21, St. Mary 7, and 4 in St. Thomas. Meanwhile, the latest deceased comprise a 56-year-old male from St. Mary, an 83-year-old male from St. James, a 64-year-old female from St. Anne, a 70-year-old male from St. Anne, an 88-year-old male from St. Elizabeth, a 78-year-old female from Clarendon, a 74-year-old female from Westmoreland, a 78-year-old male from Clarendon, a 75-year-old male from St. Anne, a 101-year-old female from St. Anne, a 72-year-old female from St. Anne, a 66-year-old female from St. Catherine, an 83-year-old female from Westmoreland, a 51-year-old female from St. James, a 72-year-old female from Kingston and St. Andrew, an 84-year-old male from Westmoreland, a 62-year-old male from Portland, and a 51-year-old female from St. James. The ministry said 17 of the deaths occurred between August 23 and 26. One death, which was previously under investigation, occurred on August 16, while one of the new cases being reported today died. The ministry further reported 60 new recoveries, which pushed the total recoveries to 48,028. There are 15,811 active cases on the island. JBN, we keep you informed. Please remember to subscribe, like, share, leave us a comment, and click the notification bell to receive our daily news items.